Welcome back to the Barrel Talk podcast. This is another episode of Let's Talk About It. Before we get into the episode, make sure to go show love to the two previous Let's Talk About It episodes. Talked about the Warriors and their struggles this season, and we also talked about some of the contenders and pretenders this season, up to the midpoint way of the season. But this episode, it's finally trade season. It's time to get into some trade talk. Trade deadline's about about a month away. But we finally got our first big time trade. I know the Washington Wizards and the Pistons had a small trade going on, I think last week. But this is the first blockbuster move that we've seen this year. But going into it, Indiana Pacers have acquired Pascal Siakam in a trade that would send Bruce Brown, Jordan Nwora, and 3 first-round picks to Toronto. And a part of a separate trade, the Pelicans sent Kira Lewis Jr. to the Pacers for a second-round pick. This is huge for the Pacers. I'm glad to see this from kind of a smaller market because when looking at this trade, I was skeptical on teams giving up a whole lot for Pascal Siakam. And I know how Ujiri is. He's going to get the best bang for his buck, for sure. That's why he's kind of held on to some of these assets for as long as he has. But this trade finally happened, and I love it for both sides. Because you get draft capital in Toronto, 3 first-round picks, and you get Bruce Brown, which you can just flip and probably get another first or a second in there for sure. But I love the return both sides. I love this for the Pacers, though, because obviously they needed just a wing like Pascal Siakam that can play defense because they have the offense to compete with anybody out east, but it's just they don't have anybody that is going to stop anybody, if that makes sense. But looking at it, teams in a smaller market need to swing for the fences. Indiana, yes, they've been high. Yes, Tyrese Halliburton is an all-star caliber player and a talent. But that doesn't mean it's going to immediately start drawing people from free agency to come play in Indiana. I'm glad they're taking a swing right here because they believe that they can get Pascal Siakam to sign here long-term throughout the second part of the season. I'm glad they kind of did this a little bit earlier compared to the actual trade deadline because I feel like Indiana Pacers are in a spot right now where Tyrese Halliburton is out and they kind of need that lead guy, the guy, to come out and score. And in terms of a duo, I think Pascal Siakam fixes exactly what Indiana wants to do. I think he kind of also gives them a different look because he can definitely go get his own one-on-one in the half court, but he can also run the floor, defend, rebound. They can go have some crazy small ball lineups. And in terms of the Toronto Raptors, I do have an episode coming out where I talk about kind of the teams in the mid, teams that are kind of stuck in no man's land, and I think Toronto just finally got out of that, giving their team a direction and where they want to go. And it's kind of sucks because it seemed like Pascal Siakam wanted to just stay in Toronto for his whole career, which I honestly understand, but it's turned to the point where I feel like that kind of turned a lot of teams away because Toronto's already a hard enough team to kind of trade with in general. Because I always feel like Toronto is just fleecing the other team. But the past 2 trades with OG and Siakam, I mean, they've gotten a haul for both of them. You're surrounding Scotty Barnes with Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett. They'll probably have the money now to sign Quickly to a long-term extension. RJ Barrett's already wrapped up for a while. You got Scotty Barnes. You have Jakob, and then now you have Bruce Brown, who already fits the team in general. You can flip him. I still do believe that they can also flip Dennis Schroeder. But I do think this is a definite win for both sides. I'm glad to see smaller markets like in Indiana trying to do this because even if a smaller market team is good, that doesn't necessarily attract free agent talent in my opinion. But I also, going into the other half of this episode, Bruce Brown, there's reports that he could be rerouted to a second team already. But I got some teams that I really do like the fit for Bruce Brown. You got to think he's making $22 million a year. You got to have the mindset to where these teams have to have either big-time contracts and draft capital. So the Pacers, the Toronto Raptors, are probably looking for another pick or two out of Bruce Brown because I think he's a championship-level role player. Obviously won a championship with the Denver Nuggets. But first team on my list, the Knicks. I think the Knicks, in terms of what their second move could be, could just get back in contact with Toronto. They have a ton of draft capital still. They have Evan Fournier's contract. They have Quentin Grimes because I feel like if you add Bruce Brown, Quentin Grimes minutes just goes to nothing, and Bruce Brown at this point in time is just a better player. I think he fits exactly what New York wants to do. He gives them another versatile piece on the defensive end and somebody who can shoot the three ball. Another team that I have on here is the Kings. Kings just need somebody who can guard, an energy guy, because I feel like in terms of their wing positions, they don't really have a energy guy, if that makes sense. Bruce Brown, super versatile. They have a Harrison Barnes contract and a bunch of draft capital that they can match up and make a deal happen. Next team, 76ers. 76ers, same thing, draft capital, and they have a bunch of like bigger contracts. And I think Bruce Brown could give the Sixers just another guy defensively that can switch and guard multiple positions and also score the ball a little bit. Last team I have, kind of like a low key in my opinion, it's the Spurs. The Spurs have a couple bigger contracts on their roster. They do have still some draft capital. This will be just mainly to kind of put a little bit more NBA ready talent around Wemby, just to make it so like they're not as bad as they are. And they do have the money. I don't know how the free agent market's going to be for San Antonio in the next couple of years, but they're going to have the money to pay Bruce Brown because his contract's only 2 years. So they're going to have enough money to go eat that. And then you have like a Doug McDermott who's making like 17 mil, and they can pair that up with like maybe a first or a second and another contract to make the money work. But love the trade for both sides. I think Bruce Brown could obviously give them another draft pick or two, and maybe even a young piece depending on who they're trading with. But this episode's mainly going to be talking about mock trades. I might have a handful of mock trades right here that kind of make sense around the league. It was hard to kind of make a lot of these trades because I want to make them as realistic as possible. But going on, we're going to have first mock trade that I have here is going to be the Hornets and the Heat. Kyle Lowry has been rumored pretty much for the past year and a half, in my opinion, to get traded or possibly bought out by any team he gets traded to. But I have the Heat getting Terry Rozier, and then the Hornets getting Kyle Lowry and a 2027 first-round pick unprotected from the Heat. This is all in for the Heat. This is a very good move. I think the Heat have also been a little too focused on getting star names, talent, all this stuff like that. It's obviously Miami, but I think Terry Rozier fits exactly what this team wants to do. Terry Rozier is somebody who can score at all three levels, defend. They kind of don't really have anything like Terry Rozier, or they really haven't. You have Tyler Hero mainly as your 1/2 most times, but I think Kyle Lowry is just getting to the point where he's not really producing for you like a Terry Rozier would. I mean, Terry Rozier gives you another shot creator with the ball, and we've seen Miami kind of struggle offensively in terms of in the playoffs when the game really slows down. I did say in previous episodes that Miami is a contender in my eyes because they play playoff basketball all year. They know how to win ugly games. Terry Rozier just gives them another scoring threat on the perimeter next to Tyler Hero and Jimmy Butler, and he can defend. It's not like he's a liability defensively. I think this would be a perfect fit. In terms of the Hornets, you kind of need to start getting off. They're going to get off this Terry Rozier contract, which is pretty large, but you're also picking up a 2027 first. This is just stockpiling draft capital for the future because you never know what's going to happen in Charlotte. They're not a free agent destination whatsoever. They have a couple of veterans on their team to where they can turn those veterans into like some more draft capital, maybe pick up a younger piece here or there, but they could easily just buy out or flip Kyle Lowry to another team, which I think buying him out would be more so the way to go here. But I think this trade that works for both sides. It gives both teams what they need. Charlotte's just looking for pure draft capital. Miami's looking for more scoring and more shot creation. Next trade, Mavericks and the Nets. Another trade by these two teams. They get Dorian Finney-Smith, Lonnie Walker. Nets get Rashawn Holmes, Oliver Maxey, the lottery pick from the Mavericks this year, and then a second rounder via Toronto. The Nets need to kind of figure out what they're doing. They have a bunch of talent on their roster that contending teams want. I think this just makes sense because Rashawn Holmes is a younger big that's just completely not even playing. Same with Oliver Maxey that has not really been in the rotation, have gotten spot minutes here or there, and you pick up a second. They might need another second to get this deal done, but Dallas has always been one to kind of make smaller moves around the edges. You already know what you're getting in Dorian Finney-Smith. He's already been on the team. He fits perfectly. You add another wing that can guard multiple positions and shoot the three ball. And then Lonnie Walker is another shot creator. that can come off your bench that isn't making a whole lot of money, but we've seen last year he can have his moments in the playoffs. I think this trade works for both teams. You get a young piece for the Nets, and the Nets don't really have a lot of younger pieces, I think, outside of Cam Thomas, Nick Claxton, and that's really about it. Anybody on this roster can be traded. I think giving them a chance to get somebody in the league now instead of a draft pick, it's good for them. He's a great defender coming out of a college. He fits nice next to Nick Claxton. Next trade. This is the DeJounte Murray trade. All right. Now, his value is so weird because they know Atlanta's just trying to dump him. Do I know why? Because they're struggling right now. I understand that, but I feel like you have to be more patient. But I do think he gets moved with this deadline. I think you need to be more patient because you see what Masai Ujiri is doing in Toronto. He's being patient and patient and patient. People have been saying they need to blow this team up 2 years ago. He's getting the most out of his players in terms of trading them. But they're looking to move off and dump off DeJounte Murray, who has a bigger contract. I feel like it's worth good enough for him. But I got the Magic getting involved here. The Magic have a log jam at the guard spot. They don't really have that lead number one guard. Jalen Suggs has turned into more of a kind of 3-and-D 2 guard, which I think that is just perfect for his career. But I got the Magic getting DeJounte Murray and Sadiq Bey. I have the Hawks getting Jonathan Isaac, Markelle Fultz, Caleb Houston, a 2025 first and a 2025 second. But it's kind of weird because the value is because they know you don't really have the leverage to kind of get off that contract. But in terms of what the Hawks could get, you get kind of something that you could work with in Jonathan Isaac. You get an expiring deal with Markelle Fultz. You get a first rounder. You get a Caleb Houston, who's a draft pick this year, a year prior actually. And then you're going to get just kind of off that DeJounte Murray contract. I feel like the Atlanta Hawks are kind of trending towards possibly trading Trae Young because I just think he is such a hard star to really build around. But I think this is a good return for the Magic. You get DeJounte Murray to be your lead guard, and then you'd have a lineup where you'd have DeJounte, Suggs, Franz, Paolo, Wendell Carter, or Go-Go, depending on where they want to go there. And then you have Sadiq Bey off your bench with like Gary Harris. So then the Hawks get a bunch of kind of expiring deals, Jonathan Isaac on a 2-year deal, so they would end up having some cap space in the future, especially because the DeJounte Murray situation has just not worked out at all. Next trade, I got Knicks and Portland. This is basically a perfect fit. Same kind of concept with the Heat and the Knicks. They're looking to name chase and star chase, which I just think doesn't really make sense for these two rosters, because the Knicks just kind of gave up their 2 best younger pieces for OG Anunoby, but it's already seeming like a great fit. But Knicks are getting Malcolm Brogdon in this trade. Malcolm Brogdon, Swiss Army knife. He can come off the bench. He can start. He can handle the ball. He can play off ball. He can do everything you need. And with how Tibbs coaches, he seems like a Tibbs guy, like he would fit in the system. You can even have him come off the bench. He's won 6th Man of the Year. Like you start DiVincenzo, he fits great next to Brunson. He gives them another shot creator on the perimeter. When I'm looking at this Knicks team, they lack shot creation really outside of Brunson and Randall. Like there is legit nobody else, and it was Quickly and a Barrett, but you don't have them no more. I feel like they're going to need to make a move like this because they don't have it coming off their bench at this point. It's really going to be a lot of Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, and we've seen what can happen when you give Julius Randle maybe too much of that. But Jalen Brunson, he needs somebody else in that backcourt, another guard that he can take pressure off of him when it comes to creating for others. I think Brogdon is a perfect candidate for this. Super low risk because he's not the sexiest name, but you're giving up Evan Fournier, who's just not even playing for the Knicks. He could probably go get bought out by Portland or whatever they want to do there, and then you're giving them your first-round pick this year, unprotected. And Portland, team that can use all this draft capital. The Knicks don't really play a lot of their young talent regardless, so this pick really doesn't mean anything for them, especially when they're really kind of knocking on the door to really competing in the Eastern Conference, depending on what kind of move they make next. Next trade, have the Sixers and the Bulls. This is the Alex Caruso trade. Now, looking at the Sixers roster, I was sitting there thinking, I was like, I mean, what could they really use? Because I don't really think you need another star that's going to score you 25 a game. You don't. Watching them play Denver last night, Tobias Harris, Stan Van Gundy was talking about, like, you're not going to get a better third option. Like, when you're talking about 76ers, Tobias Harris has been in trade allegations for years and years and years. But he had a point. Like, what other third option is going to sit in the background, give you like a consistent 15 to 22 points a game with good rebounding, with solid defense at your 4 spot, with not even taking away from Joel and Tyrese Maxey? There isn't one. They're not going to find a better third option out there for the money. And this is the last year of his deal, and they should probably re-sign him to a much team-friendlier deal. But I don't think they're going to find a better third option. They don't need to go star chase. But Alex Caruso, great fit, because looking at the Eastern Conference and who they're going to have to go through, Milwaukee, you're going to need to have guys that guard Damian Lillard. Boston, you're going to have guys that guard Jaylen Brown, Drew Holiday, Tatum. Like, you're going to need guards and wings that can defend all the multiple positions against these teams that they're going to have to go through. Even the Knicks with Jalen Brunson, even the Cavs with Donovan Mitchell, Garland. Like, looking at this trade, they're getting Alex Caruso for Robert Covington, a 2026 first, a 2024 second, and the Bulls do not have a first-round pick in 2025. I believe that belongs to the Magic in the Franz trade. But looking at this, you're going to give them another first-round pick to kind of help them bolster up that draft capital because they have lost so much. You got a second going to them. You got Robert Covington, who kind of fits what they want to do because they want to stay, I guess, in the mid and kind of still compete because they don't seem to want to get rid of DeMar DeRozan or Vucevic, but they want to get off Levine. And I think Caruso's too valuable of a trade piece to just keep him. They need to move him because he has so much value with these contending teams. Perfect fit with the 76ers. Because he's a guy that can fit right next to Tyrese Maxey. He can shoot the 3 ball. He can defend at an elite level. Not a high level, elite level defender. You put him on the court. So when you have a Tyrese Maxey who may not be the greatest defender right now, you always have him on the court with Alex Caruso, DeAnthony Melton, Patrick Beverley. So he's always going to be surrounded by another guy in the backcourt that can also defend at a high level. And then he's also somebody who plays bigger than what he is. You can put him at the 3 and he will be fine defending threes. So this is a defensive play for the Sixers to really bolster in and go win now mode because they do have some bigger contracts and Caruso's on one of the more friendlier deals in the league. And then next trade, got the Lakers. You know I had to put the Lakers in here. But when I look at the Lakers, they don't need to star chase. Why are we star chasing? Your roster isn't good enough all around to star chase, and you don't have anything anybody wants anyways. But with the short kind of things that teams do want, I'm talking to the Pistons. Pistons just need talent right now. I mean, they just need to surround K with something. I mean, this has been such a bad season for the Pistons, and they have 2 guys on their team that aren't even getting minutes. I know one of them that's in this trade is dealing with injury problems, I believe so, in Monte Morris, but here's the trade. Lakers get Joe Harris, a consistent shooter, to put next to Bron and AD that can space the floor. Monte Morris, one of the better backup guards in the league. That's what he's known for in his career, but fits perfectly next to Bron and AD. Low maintenance guard. He's not going to turn the ball over or anything else. He can shoot the 3 ball. He can space the floor. But Pistons are getting D'Lo, who seems to be already a foot out the door anyways. Gabe Vincent, who hasn't played for you all fucking year. And Max Christie. I think this is a win-win because the Pistons could use a D'Lo at this point in time just to put more talent around Cade Cunningham. Gabe Vincent's still relatively young. And then Max Christie is somebody who can really damn near start for Portland in certain moments. And I think the Pistons for certain moments, and he could definitely grow as a player more so there because he's only getting like spot minutes with LA right now. But this is just getting 2 pieces that fit what they want to do. And it's tough to really, because I still think they need to back up big, but it's so tough like working out a trade with the Lakers because like they're obviously probably not going to trade Austin Reeves unless it's for like a Zach LaVine. They're probably not even going to get a Zach LaVine kind of player because like why would Chicago want to do that? But I think Joe Harris and Monte Morris fit what they want to do, fit around Bron, fit around AD. That's what they need to focus on. That's what won them the chip in the first place in the bubble. But next trade, we have Zach LaVine. Now, the Kings, I think this is the trade that they absolutely need to do because there's just something, they need another go-to guy. I love Malik Monk off their bench, but they need another surefire guy in that starting lineup with De'Aaron Fox because I don't know, and I don't think Keegan Murray is ready to really be that second really guy, because Sabonis does a lot of great things. A lot of great things. I don't think Sabonis being your secondary real scorer is going to work for you. But you're getting Zach LaVine, a guy that can go get you 25 to 30. All right, here's the trade. Kings get Zach LaVine, Torrey Craig. Torrey Craig can come off your bench. Zach LaVine's going to fit perfectly next to De'Aaron Fox and this offense that is really high scoring. Bulls get Harrison Barnes, veteran, Kevin Huerter, three-point shooter that can fit anywhere he goes. And you get a 2026 top 3 protected first. Like I said earlier, Chicago Bulls don't have a first-round pick in 2025. This is a great way to go into 2026, the year prior after that, to have 2 first-round picks with these 2 trades that I have for the Bulls in this episode. I just think it makes sense. The Bulls and Zach LaVine they're just trying to dump him. I think Zach LaVine can go thrive next to De'Aaron Fox, next to a Sabonis, next to a Keegan Murray. Mike Brown's a phenomenal coach over there. I just think this is the perfect fit for both teams. And with the Bulls, they're still trying to be in the mid. Like I said, they're still trying to compete a little bit, not be completely tanking. So Harrison Barnes and Kevin Huerter are definitely going to be better fits than Zach LaVine next to Kobe White, DeMar, and Vucevic. Because those 2 guys are very versatile where you can put them. Next trade. We're going to go to the Suns. Now, this is some of these are kind of turning into 2-part trades, but I just think the Suns need a little bit of everything. They need some actual quality role players, and they kind of need a little bit more defense in their role players. But this is kind of definitely a 2-part trade because they're talking to Toronto. Toronto just got Emmanuel quickly. Dennis Schroeder was their starting guard, signed him to a 2 to 3 year deal. But the Suns need a guard. They need an actual point guard, somebody who can help get other people open. Here's what I'm doing. Suns are getting Dennis Schroeder, Thaddeus Young, Otto Porter. 3 role players that would just be huge for the Suns. Is exactly what they need. This trade is kind of hard to make because, like I've said earlier in this episode, Masai Ujiri is kind of a hard GM to negotiate with. But here's the trade. Toronto is going to get Grayson Allen, Nasir Little, who's a still relatively young talent, Keita Bates-Diop, Chimezie Metu, a 2024 second, a 2026 second, and a 2028 second. So you're getting 3 seconds, a young player, Nasir Little. Keita Bates-Diop is like 27. Grayson Allen, who's a shooter who can fit next to Scotty Barnes. Chimezie Metu, still relatively young, can play your 4 or 5. But looking at this from Toronto's side, you're picking up 3 seconds, a young player, Grayson Allen, who can be flipped for anything, really, or he could just stay on the team, more shooting, next to Scotty Barnes. And you're giving up 2 guys that are kind of, one guy, an Otto Porter, that's kind of not even really in your rotation. Gives more minutes to Grady Dick, who's your lottery pick this year. You get Thaddeus Young, who's older vet, who kind of isn't on the timeline at this point. You get Dennis Schroeder, who kind of doesn't fit what you want to do now because you have Emmanuel quickly, and you want to give Emmanuel quickly as much run as possible. This is an easy, quick way to get off Dennis Schroeder's contract because you're going to want more money to sign Emmanuel quickly to a long-term extension. I think this just makes sense for the Suns, and it makes sense longer term for Toronto because they're going to need that money, and having Dennis Schroeder off the books is going to make it a lot easier to go ahead and sign Emmanuel quickly to whatever money you need to do that. And then perfect fit for the Suns, Dennis Schroeder, guard that can defend and can score the ball, shot create, playmaker, he does it all. I think he's one of the most underrated guards in the league. Thaddeus Young fits perfectly. He can do a little bit of everything. Same with Otto Porter. 2 guys that are higher level role players that the Suns don't have at the forward spot that can really help this team because they lack forward depth outside of really Kevin Durant in terms of high quality role players. Otto Porter, Thaddeus Young, Dennis Schroeder, all 3 of them bring defense and spacing. I think it's just a trade that makes the most sense for the Suns. But last mock trade I have here is a 3-teamer. Stick with me. I think this all makes sense for all 3 teams. We have the Warriors. Warriors are primed to make a move. This is not the Bob Myers era anymore, who's kind of been more so conservative at the deadline instead of being aggressive, especially on most of those teams. They really need to make a big-time move. But this team definitely needs to make some kind of move. But got the Warriors getting Lauri Markkanen and Karis LeVert. The Cavs getting Andrew Wiggins, Kelly Olynyk. The Jazz are going to get Isaac Okoro, Georges Niang, Jonathan Kuminga, 2026 to 2027 second rounders from the Cavs, a 2026 first rounder from the Golden State Warriors, and another 2027 second from the Warriors. Now, Danny Ainge, great GM over there. He's kind of like Masai Ujiri. He's going to get the most bang for his buck in most of these trades, but the kind of consensus around Lauri Markkanen in trade circles has been more so about draft capital, about 2 first-round picks at a minimum. And with this trade, I feel like everybody's kind of winning. Lauri Markkanen, perfect fit with the Warriors. Karis LeVert also gives the Warriors another scoring option, another shot creator, which they desperately need. Cavs, they've been looking for a small forward for years now. This is the year where they kind of need to, all right, we can mess around and lose Donovan Mitchell this offseason. Finally go get us a defensive, really. Andrew Wiggins struggling with the Warriors. I think if you put him in a new situation, he'd be fine. He can do a little bit of everything. We've seen what the best version of Andrew Wiggins looks like on a championship level team. And with the Cavs, he fits perfectly because he can guard bigger wings. We've seen him guard like a Tatum and a Brown. To compete in the Eastern Conference, you need defenders. You need defenders. Andrew Wiggins is something that the Cavs have not had whatsoever. They got us finally a small forward. Now your starting lineup is going to be Garland when he gets back, Donovan Mitchell, Andrew Wiggins, Evan Mobley when he gets back, and Jared Allen. Now, Kelly Olynyk is not even a throw-in in this situation because when you saw last year in the playoffs, Evan Mobley and Jared Allen in their front court, it works great defensively. But you need that defense when you have a smaller backcourt. But you saw times where the spacing was bad. I think Kelly Olynyk in serviceable minutes can give you that kind of spacing at that stretch 5 or stretch 4 position and just give you spacing to really help Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland get to the rim. I think those two players fit what Cleveland needs to do and wants to do right now. Same with Lauri Markkanen and Karis LeVert. Now, from the Jets' perspective, you get a young guy in Isaac Okoro who has shown some flashes and some promise defensively, of course, and a little bit offensively. Georges Niang, who is kind of salary cap filler. You get Jonathan Kuminga, who has shown flashes. You get a first from Golden State, a second from Golden State, and 2 seconds from Cleveland. Now, the more so, it's not going to be just picks because I feel like Isaac Okoro and Jonathan Kuminga are 2 guys that still have a lot to prove in their careers, and I think they're way better off just getting Jonathan Kuminga to really help this team with their talent. I feel like Utah has a sleeper kind of core building over there in Utah, but Jonathan Kuminga fits what they want to do. He can start for them and take those Lauri Markkanen minutes. And then I did kind of debate to whether or not if there's a world where like Moses Moody is in this deal, could possibly be a thing. But I feel like Golden State also giving up a first and Jonathan Kuminga and Wiggins getting routed to the Cavs. But the Jazz are getting Isaac Okoro from Cleveland. So I think this 3-team trade makes sense for all sides. Definitely gives every team what they need. But especially I think Cleveland definitely needs a guy like Andrew Wiggins and somebody that can space the floor from the 4 or 5 spot like a Kelly Olynyk. I think this would be huge for Cleveland. And for the Warriors, they just need to shake it up. They need to find a way to really kind of change the vibe of the team, if I would say, because Lauri Markkanen fits perfectly what they want to do. He can fit perfectly next to Draymond because he can stretch the floor. He can play a small ball 5. And then Karis LeVert, he's giving them shot creation off the bench because outside of really Chris Paul, Karis LeVert would come in and immediately be an impact off that bench scoring-wise. And you can even find situations where he could fit him into the starting lineup. Who knows? But I feel like all these kind of trades make sense for all these teams. I feel like the deadline is going to be exciting this year. I hope we see some bigger moves because I think there's a lot of teams outside the ones I talked about that definitely need to make a move. But that's to wrap up this episode of Let's Talk About It. Thank you for tuning into the Barrel Talk podcast. Hope to see you tune in the future episodes.